Hello folks, today we're going to look at the repair and lubrication of Apple floppy disk drives. Specifically, I'm going to show you two things. Number one, I'm going to review this teensy tiny gear made in Italy and easily available on eBay for purchase that will help you repair your 800K and 1.44 megabyte floppy disk drives. This gear is not needed for 400K drives because it doesn't have little plastic gears like this that easily break. Number two, I'm going to show you how Molykote EM-30L grease compares to SuperLube grease. And the reason this is important is because the original grease that was used at Apple's factories to lubricate the drives was EM-10L. So 30L is a slight variation of the original grease. And I'm going to show you how to properly lubricate your drives with it. This video you're watching today is only a supplement of my 800K floppy disk drive video. I'm going to focus on the 1.44 megabyte drive mechanism in this video, but to make this video shorter and more concise, I left out a lot of pertinent details. I didn't feel like I needed to repeat myself because I already have my other video. So if you'd like to see more details how I tore down the drive, or even recap the drive, please consult my 800K drive video for all of those details. Also, to make it easier for you, if you look down on YouTube, you'll see the slider is divided up into sections. That will make it easier for you to jump to the section that interests you, and chances are you'll be watching this video while repairing your drive and you want to watch the same section over and over repeatedly. If you want more precision, click Show More, drop down the text description. You'll see timestamps there. Just click the timestamps and we'll jump you to the pertinent section that you want to watch. So let's get started. Here are the molded gears that I purchased from eBay seller Fiori71. The reason I purchased these wasn't because that the price was especially low. You can see the price is $5.90 in euro, and if we convert that to US dollars as of today in August 2020, it's about $6.92 US dollars. I purchased 4 of these in late May and they arrived in June. The pricing is on par with some of the other gears you'll find on eBay, but these specifically say that they are molded, whereas some of the other listings don't tell you if they're 3D printed or molded. And also this tells you the type of plastic used, PMMA. But even more importantly, and the reason I think this is a good value, is the shipping is only 2.50 euros, which is right about 3 US dollars, or you can see in Japanese yen, 313 yen, which is far cheaper than the others. It also makes it very clear you are getting something not made by a 3D printer, and it's specially made for various Sony drives, which of course for the Apple Macintosh 800K drives, and of course it will work in the 1.44 megabyte mechanism as well. If we look at some of the other listings that I compared, these look fairly good, but they don't say in the listing whether it's 3D printed or molded. Now, it looks like it might be molded. I can't really tell. The price is Australian dollars, so you're looking more along the lines of 12 US dollars, and it seems that you get 3, at least from the photo, but look at the shipping. Australia $20 converts out to be about $14.25, which is quite high actually for only 3 gears. And if I look on here, it's showing the picture again. It seems to indicate that you'll get 3, but it doesn't go into detail to say if it is molded or if it's 3D printed and what type of plastic is used. So there was a question in my mind as to that point, and because that wasn't clear to me, and of course the shipping being high as well, I decided to pass on this listing. And then there was another listing here, and it shows, you can kind of see little parts that might have been 3D printed that just didn't look quite perfect to me. You can see the shape of it. I'm guessing this is 3D printed, but again, the listing isn't making it clear. It's saying the price for 2 is $15, but look at the shipping, about $23 for shipping. That's of course shipping to Japan, but I'm sure many global locations would be similar to that. It says it's shipping from, okay, California, so it's probably cheaper if you're within the United States, but for me in Japan and for those of you who are outside the United States, that would be rather high. So again, that pricing is for 2 gears shipped by USPS, and that's why I ultimately went with these, because it's very clear what you get. The photo isn't completely as zoomed in as I would like, but I couldn't really tell if it was good or bad, so I just decided to pull the trigger on a purchase and see how they are. So here is the package that arrived from Italy. It's a very small, lightweight packet. And if we open it up here, you can see what was included. It includes this little note along with the gears, just to say thank you. I mentioned I might do a YouTube review, so he mentions that here. And he just added one more gear. I only ordered 4, but he very kindly sent me 5. So I wish to say thank you for that. And now we can look at the gears. Here they are. Again, I got one for free. The seller very kindly included it. But based upon my eyes here, they look quite good in terms of the quality of the gears, but I'd like to take an even closer look with my microscope. So here's one of the Italian-made gears, and we can see that the gear teeth are really quite clean. There's a little bit of residue in between these 2 teeth. Looks like it was cleaned out a little bit, I guess after it was removed from the mold. None of this really matters unless we compare with a stock gear. So here is a stock gear that was removed from a 1.44 megabyte Apple SuperDrive floppy disk drive. We can see, you know, this green stuff is some of the residue that was just on there that I didn't clean off. And as you know, these were, I guess, injection molded or molded somehow long before we had 3D printers. But we can see even the stock gear has little hairs or parts of each gear that come off. I can zoom in just a little bit more. Each gear tooth is pretty good, but you know, it's not perfectly smooth. You can still see some of the imperfections, little hairs around it, yet it works fine. Here's the outer teeth. You can see there's a little residue there of the grease that's stuck in the middle, but for the most part you can see how they're shaped. And then of course the outer teeth on the Italian gear. So they are comparably very, very good. We see the inner gear teeth here. Here's the back of the stock gear. We can see that it's not perfectly flat. This center area is raised a bit, and then you've got this hole here which is dented into the gear, which is a bit different from the replacement gears. But also notice that the plastic is very consistent. There are no air bubbles in this. And here's the replacement gear. You can see that it is perfectly flat, except perhaps for the air bubbles. But this is a fairly strong magnification, so these bubbles are extremely small. However, I have noticed the bubbles even in the tips of the teeth, which would of course serve to weaken them a little bit. Whether that will be a problem over time is something I cannot say. Here are the 2 gears back to back. You can see the stock gear on top and the Italian gear on the bottom. You'll notice there's a little crud in between these 2 teeth here that probably should be cleaned out, but other than that, it is a faithful replica of the original. So here's the 1.44 megabyte drive mechanism disassembled. This is something that's a little bit unique to the later edition drives. Is on the inside of the metal case here, there's actually a plastic insert, and this was added by Apple so as to give some better protection of the drive from dust induction because of the fan. And normally without this, the air would come through a variety of vents in the computer, but especially through that floppy disk hole, and would just flow on through into the computer. This, at least the basic concept, is to kind of block that, so there is going to be less dust buildup. Doesn't completely eliminate the dust, but it's better than nothing at all, so I just wanted to mention that before we proceed. I would now like to give a big shout out of thanks to Joe, who is located in the UK, for very kindly purchasing this down courting Molykote EM-30L lubrication. He purchased it and shipped it to me out of the kindness of his heart, and I certainly appreciate that. So what I'd like to do now is show you how that compares to the SuperLube with PTFE that I used on my 800K lubrication drive video. So here's the EM-30L, just putting a small dab here so I can compare. I would say on this hot summer day, it's a little bit less like honey than it was when I tested it for the first time on my 800K drive video, but it's still fairly thick. EM-30L in comparison, it's not like water, but I would say it's comparatively, well, not a whole lot thinner, not like I thought, but maybe very slightly thinner. Very slightly though. So I guess the temperature does matter. It was cooler when I did the 800K drive video, but it's much warmer today. And so I would say really the consistency is quite similar, although yeah, the EM-30L does have a slight edge in smoothness. So I don't believe I'm going to mix this with anything. Besides, I can't mix this with an oil, whereas I could mix this with another PTFE oil, because this is, according to the manufacturer, able to be mixed. This is something you would not want to mix. So I'm just going to use this on the metal parts as is, without mixing it with any oil. This is about as far as you can take off the circuit board without desoldering the two motor wires, so we'll go ahead and do that now. And then we can now just squeeze this little inner part. Using my 99% ISO alcohol, I cleaned off all of the stock grease from inside the gearbox, including this little hole here. So now it's time to apply the Molykote EM-30L to the bottom of the gear. I'm also going to apply it inside this little hole here. So now we put on our greased up gear. And then add this gear. Confirm it's nice and smooth. And we now put our lobe back on with the bill of the cap facing towards the motor, because the little pin is sticking over here to the left. So to put the circuit board back on, we want to just temporarily move the gear here, because it is in this area here that we must place this metal piece. And if you don't move the bill out of the way like this, then it will be impossible to put this back on. Notice I've not soldered these two motor wires down yet, and it's a bit fiddly on this type, but I would suggest you do as I've done here. You insert the circuit board first, which means you have the little motor wires above your solder pads. and then before you solder it in, you push down your circuit board all the way. Before soldering, make sure you spin and make sure it's still working fine. You'll feel some resistance with every revolution because it's making contact, but you shouldn't feel a lot of resistance, so it's working fine. Now we put more EM-30L on the bottom of our Italian replacement gear and the top part of this small portion of the white gear. Now I'm going to put some on the top because this gear will make contact a bit with the top metal plate and also this part and this part. Now grease up our gear. It's all been cleaned off, all the old grease, using more of our EM-30L. And you don't need to use grease as sparingly as you should use it inside the gearbox. Don't put too much, but you don't need to use it so sparingly. And then of course we need to apply grease on our head in this area as well. Again, it doesn't need to be used so sparingly. For the bar that goes on the head, I'm going to use the SuperLube oil with PTFE instead of the EM-30L because this needs to be more slippery. And we insert that back. Now we need to slip our head back on the worm gear. And reconnect our ribbon cables very carefully. And then put back in our screws. Now we're going to take our EM-30L and put it on various points here. These circles. You can see I'm removing some of it. I don't want to put on too much. I'm also going to put it on these guys here because these guys touch. And I'll just put a very tiny thin dab where these lines are etched into the metal. And it feels nice and smooth. You can see these ovals are wider, so they don't actually make contact with these two guys except for the top and the bottom. But these guys slide and touch, so that's why I put grease on them. I would say it's at least as good, maybe better in terms of smoothness compared to the SuperLube grease with PTFE. And again, some more EM-30L on the top piece. We don't want to use too much, but We want to make sure we have enough. I'm using SuperLube oil, PTFE, on these little rollers here. These have already been cleaned, so you'll make sure yours are moving well before you do this. Now on the flip side of this guy, you can see here that there's metal on metal contact down here. I would not advise putting grease here, because if it ever does freeze up, it's really hard to get out. You need to use it sparingly, but I would suggest putting oil here. Don't use too much, but put some there, since there is metal on metal contact. Now before we put back on these little guys here, here, and here, because they're going to touch the top of the metal, to make it absolutely smooth, oil might seem to be a good idea, but you really can't make SuperLube oil with this Molykote. So I would suggest a very thin layer of the EM-30L over the top. Just a very thin coat. And then the technique of putting these on is to just put them on with your thumb and pushing down hard, which hurts your thumb a bit, but it does work. So before putting on the motor, we want to put down our connector. So remember, we have two screws, one here and one here. So we want to put Molykote on all the places where the rollers will make contact, all the slanted parts and the U-shaped parts. Definitely don't forget to put back on your little plastic piece here. It's very smooth. So now it's time for some testing. This is just a simple test with a floppy disk to show how it ejects, because the gear that we used is not for the read-write head, that's for the ejection mechanism. And this will just show with the mouse button held down how this ejects, how smoothly it ejects, and also it'll show you the sound, because some people have said when they've used replacement gears it sounds different from the stock. In my opinion, does it sound different? Well, when you've got the fan and other things going inside your computer, I don't think you can tell the difference. There might be a slight difference because the shape of the gear is slightly different, but it's not necessarily a bad or louder sound, it's just slightly different, and I'll let you hear it for yourself. And for the final test, I'm going to use Disk Dupe Plus to copy a disk image that I've read into memory to this 1.44MB floppy disk. And here's the disk we just copied, so we'll put that in now. and the disc works great. And that's it. Once again, I'd like to thank Joe in the UK for his very kind donation of the EM-30L lubrication, without which this video would not have been possible. I would also like to express my heartfelt thanks to Ricky Moyer for his very kind donation to this channel by PayPal. Thank you very much, Ricky. If you'd like to join Ricky, you'll find the PayPal link in the text description underneath this video. Please click Show More to drop it down if you're on a desktop computer. You can also see it on mobile, even on your iPhone. There's a little down mark. You just click on that and it'll drop down. It's more than just the PayPal link in the text description, folks. You'll see the index. You'll see a lot of useful information resources. I even gave you a Mauser cart so that you can recap your 1.44 megabyte drive mechanism. Even though I did not cover recapping, as I said at the beginning, the recapping is covered in the 800K drive video. But the capacitors, even though they look almost exactly the same, there's one or two capacitors that are different on the 1.44 megabyte drive mechanism as opposed to the 800K mechanism. So if you have an 800K drive and want to recap it, use the Mauser cart under that 800K drive video. If you have the 1.44 drive, then use the Mauser cart in the text description under this video. And if you have both, then you'll need to buy both carts for that. Also be aware that I don't get any kickbacks, I don't get any commissions because Mauser does not have an affiliate program. I simply put these Mauser carts in the text description for you as a convenience. If you like this video, I'd certainly appreciate your click on the thumbs up button. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. YouTube is still telling me that 95% of you is a lot, are still not subscribed. I'm trying to think how I can make my videos better so I can get that down to at least 60%. But for now, I'd certainly appreciate your subscription. It's really encouraging to me to keep making videos like this one. Thank you for watching. I certainly appreciate each and every one of you. I mean, without you, why am I even here? I really love helping people, and that's why I make these videos. So I do appreciate it when you watch, and please let me know your comments. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I read and reply to every comment, actually, so you can engage me there. If you ever need to email me, you want to say something private that's not for public consumption, you can go to my YouTube channel, just click my JDW name, and you'll see an About section. And in that About section, you'll see how to access my email there. I wish each and every one of you a wonderful day. Take care, folks.